Chapter 15, EOA Queen Headquarters. John woke up and realized it was a Sunday, and with the exception of a lengthy worship service, it was his day off. He lay on his bed thinking. Sleep didn't seem to relieve his tiredness because of the recurring nightmares. Years ago, he thought that they were over, and he wasn't going to have them anymore as he grew older. But seeing his father beat the soldier with the rod brought back the horrors of his abusive childhood. He looked across the room and saw the rod laying on his desk. He rolled on his side so he couldn't see it. He never wanted to see it again. He remembered all too well the times his father and even his grandfather used it on him. I will never use that on one of my soldiers. Never, he thought, as he lay there breathing hard. Enough. It is time. I need to find out what I'm here so I can do to get to Ryder and get the hell out of here. I can't take it much more. He needed a plan. Samuels realized early on that the base was locked down. There didn't seem to be any access to the outside world. This was to ensure that the location of the headquarters was kept a secret to everyone here. Nonchalantly, he asked some of the soldiers in the unit if they knew where they were, but they all seemed to have come in the same way John did, in a ship with no windows, through an entrance that looked out onto a barren field. Now, there were some hills with snow on the ground, so he knew that it was somewhere that gets cold in the north, but it could be almost anywhere. The soldiers he talked to seemed to be mostly from North America, but there were some from Europe as well. He knew that his father used a terminal in his private room that gave him some outside access, but he didn't know how he could get to it. Every Sunday, he ate a private breakfast with his father after the Sunday church services, but in all those times, Talbot was always there, hovering. He needed to figure out a way to get them occupied somehow so that he could access the terminal. If he could get a message to Ryder, they would be able to trace it back to the terminal. How do I do that? John wondered. He decided it was time to get up, so he crawled out of bed and grabbed his nice clothes, his towel and shower kit, and headed to the group showers. After church services, he waited for his father at the door. It usually took a while because he stayed to talk with many of his followers. This was the same routine John observed for the past few months now, so he wondered if he could try something different. He walked up to his father right after the service and said, "Father, I'm feeling tired today. Would you mind if I go ahead to your room and wait for you there?" Paul was busy talking to one of the other religious leaders and stopped for a second, thought about it, and then handed John a key card. "Of course, my son. I will see you there in about 20 minutes." John tried to keep his face placid as he was leaping for joy inside. He thanked his father and then moved as quickly as possible, without running, to the door. He looked at his handheld and began a countdown. He needed to move fast once he was inside his father's room. He rushed past some of the soldiers and made his way down the hallway to father's room. He used the key and the door slid open. He let it close before he started looking around, making sure that he was definitely alone. His father's room was the biggest of all the bedrooms in the complex. However, it wasn't all his. There was a meeting area in the main area where John entered. This is where they eat their Sunday breakfast. In fact, it looked like the food was already there and waiting, covered by metal trays to keep it warm. He walked past the table and toward the bedroom area. There was another door to this area, and luckily it was open. He found the terminal located at a small desk just opposite of his father's bed. The screensaver showed a cross and the EOA motto that faded in and out, reappearing at different spots on the screen. Before clicking on the screen, John examined the area to ensure there weren't any silent alarms that might be triggered. It seemed safe, so he clicked a key. A password request appeared. I didn't expect that, but I should have, thought John. He tried his name first, rejected. Then he tried his grandfather's name, Sebastian, and that also failed. He proceeded to try his mother's name, his dog, and various other names that were in the family. All didn't work. Aloud, John said, "What can it be?" And then he remembered. Of course. He typed Genesis 1:28, and the screen cleared. He was in the terminal with many windows to the outside. Genesis 1:28 was the verse from the Bible that was the adaptation for the EOA slogan. Just as he was about to open a new terminal window, he heard the door open and voices of his father and Talbot. Crap! John cursed under his breath. He quickly put the terminal to sleep, bringing up the screensaver again, and got up from the chair. He wondered how he would explain the reason for being in the bedroom. He ran to the bathroom and forced himself to throw up. It wasn't too difficult because he was already so scared. He heard movement outside the room, and so he came out, wiping his mouth with a towel. "John, are you okay?" he heard Paul ask from the other room. Paul entered the bedroom and went immediately to John, grabbing his shoulder. John looked up at him and apologized for entering his room. "I am so sorry, Father. I got sick. I just didn't feel well." Talbot entered the room, eyeing the screen, frowning a little and pushing the chair back in. Then his focus was on John. "I forgot to push in the chair," John thought. "I can't make any mistakes." The two men helped him back out of the main room and into a chair. They both sat down on either side of him. Paul poured him some cold water, and John took it, thankful to get the bile taste out of his mouth. "So, how are you feeling now?" I think I'm okay. I was just sitting here waiting for you, and then I had a wave of nausea and rushed to the bathroom. I am so sorry again. I cleaned up my mess." John tried to sound as innocent as possible. Paul touched his shoulder. "Of course, John, no worries. Do you want to just go to your room and rest?" John nodded. That might be best. And even though he was starving at the moment, he got up and excused himself, saying goodbye to both of them. After the doors shut, Talbot looked up and said, "My father, I think John was on your terminal." Paul shook his head. "No, he wouldn't do that. He knows better." "My father, the chair was pulled out, and he was in here for quite a while. You should not have given him your key." "Listen, Talbot, I am getting tired of your accusations. I am sure that if I left the chair out this morning when I was researching my sermon, there is no way my son would violate the rules he knows we have in the place. Just eat your breakfast, but—" "Stop talking about it, Talbot, or you can skip breakfast and leave," Paul shouted with fury in his face. "Yes, my father," said Talbot, obediently, as he opened the tray and pulled out some food. As John headed back to his room, he sighed in relief that he wasn't caught, but he figured Talbot would probably never let him borrow the key again. He would need to find another way to get the information. Chapter 16, Gemini. "You know that I'm graduating in a few weeks, right?" Cooper said as they were eating a meal from a pack while drifting in the graveyard. Anne took a bite and looked at him with a sly grin. "Well, only if you pass your final test." This made Cooper smile, because she knew full well that he was going to pass the test. He said, "Come on, Anne. You know that I will pass the final written test. I aced all the other ones without a problem." Her smile faded a little, and then she said, "I know, I was just teasing you." Then, becoming more serious, "Are you really ready to head to the Mayflower?" This made Cooper's smile turn to a slight frown. "Well, I'm excited at finally getting to Sperrier. I mean, the launch date is only a few weeks away, so it would be better if I was there getting to know the place and the people I will be traveling with before I leave. But—" and his voice trailed off. "What?" she said, looking into his eyes. "Well," Cooper said, looking down, "I mean, I'm going to miss you when I leave. We are probably never going to see each other again." With the last word, Cooper looked into her eyes and blushed a little. Leaning in closer, Anne touched Cooper's hand and said, "Cooper, you know I can't go with you." "But why?" Cooper said, looking at her, frustration in his voice. "You know they are going to need more astromechanical engineers for the different shifts in travel. You would be perfect." "Are you saying that because I am one of those, or because you want me to go?" Anne said. I want you to go," Cooper stammered, not sure how to express his feelings. But he grasped her hand tighter and moved closer to her. She moved in as well, and they kissed for the first time. Cooper couldn't believe it. At first it felt weird to have his lips on someone else's, but he didn't want it to stop either. After a few minutes, though, Anne pulled away with tears in her eyes. What is it?" Cooper said with worry in his voice. Anne looked up. "It's not you, Cooper. It's just that Gemini is my home. My grandfather is getting older, and I need to be here to help him, especially with the new goals of expanding space travel. I can't go with you. I'm sorry." The tears were flowing down her cheeks now, and she turned away and looked out the window at the derelict ships floating around them. "But Anne," Cooper started. He knew there wasn't much left much time left for them, so he needed to tell her how he felt. Anne, I feel like I'm falling for you. Ever since we first met, I was fascinated by you. I have never been able to talk to women, but with you, it's different. You always made me feel so comfortable. You are so beautiful, funny, and perfect. Cooper, please stop, Anne said, with more tears flowing. I just can't. My place is here. She looked into his eyes, and now he had tears as well. I have feelings for you as well, but you knew where I stood with relationships. My love is the space station. It is my home forever, and I don't want to change. Maybe I should stay then, Cooper suggested. No, Anne said, this a little forcefully. You must go. It is your destiny. Just as Commander Ryder said, you will make Sperrier an amazing place and lead others. I see it in you, too. You have abilities you haven't even recognized yet. It would be foolish of me to ask you to stay, and I won't do it. They talked a little longer after that, but it was clear that Anne made her decision and was staying on Gemini. They would remain good friends, but that was it. Pain and sorrow were all Cooper felt as he flew the shuttle pod back to the airlock. Chapter 17, Gemini Motor Pool. 5 days later, Cooper stood with 8 other soldiers in the motor pool bay. In place of the ships were chairs in 4 equal rows facing a podium. First, Sergeant Bolt stood behind a podium and was talking about the hard work and dedication of the young men and women completing training today. However, Cooper wasn't listening to any of it. He was torn by his feelings for Anne and his strong desire to go to Sperrier. In actuality, he didn't have much choice anyway. His orders were in his handheld already, and he was leaving on a ship bound for Mayflower the next day. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Commander Ryder there, grinning ear to ear, surrounded by an entourage of bodyguards. Then Bolts called his name, and he came forward. Specialist Cooper Richardson, it is with great pleasure that I pin this spacesuit medal on your uniform, signifying your completion of astromechanical engineer training. As you heard when I called your name, you have also been promoted to Specialist. Congratulations! We wish you all the best on your next duty assignment on the USS Mayflower. After receiving his Specialist badge, Cooper turned and everyone applauded. Along with some of the other motor pool staff, Josiah was there and Angela, Daniel's wife, as well. Oh my gosh, Specialist promotion as well? I can't believe it, thought Cooper. Cooper marched back to his seat while the other soldiers got their orders and awards. Then it was over and everyone was moving on back to work. Ryder walked over to him and wrapped his arms tight around him. Cooper was thrilled to see his grandfather again. They planned on going to dinner at the Firefly to celebrate, but first Cooper wanted to say goodbye to everyone. They agreed to meet at the restaurant at 1800 hours that night. With one last hug, Cooper headed back to the motor pool office. When he entered, he discovered Bolts, Daniel, and Anne were all waiting for him. They applauded as he entered. Then Daniel slapped him on the back, saying, "You did it, Specialist!" Anne slugged him in the shoulder and joked, "Don't get any ideas about ordering me around just because we have the same rank. It doesn't mean we are equal. I have years on you." Finally, Bolts grasped Cooper's hand in his, engulfing Cooper's, and he shook it vigorously for a long time. "I wanted to tell you for a long time you were going to get that promotion, but I thought it better to keep it secret until the ceremony." "But how did I get promoted so fast? I've only been in the military for like 6 months," Cooper asked, still in a little bit of shock. Bolts leaned in closer, taking the unlit cigar from his mouth, and said, "Cooper, you aced all the tests. Anne tells me that you are the best recruit she ever trained, and you single-handedly saved all of us from death when you disarmed that nuclear bomb. If I could have promoted you to sergeant, I would have done that." Cooper just grinned, and Anne said, "Don't make him too arrogant, grandfather. Besides, if we promoted him to sergeant, then he would be telling me what to do. No, thank you." This made all of them laugh. Then Bolts and Daniels moved away, leaving Anne just standing there with him. "Cooper," Anne said, looking at him with those beautiful eyes that he remembered from the moment he met her, "I am going to miss you. You better keep in touch." She moved forward, and they hugged closely for a long time. Anne then handed Cooper a small gift. He looked at it, wondering what it was. Then it hit him, and he asked, "Is this a replica of the Hawk ship that we worked with when I first got here?" "Yes, remember we had to fix the leaky ventilation system," they both said together before bursting out into laughter. "Well, thank you, Anne. This is a good memory. I was so nervous, and it was the first time I worked with you and Simon. And now you are an expert, an astromechanical engineer, just like me." Cooper looked down at the ground for a moment. "Well, I might have the title, but you have always been better than me, and I was just hoping not to screw things up." She grabbed his shoulder until he looked up. "You didn't. You were awesome. Remember the time you figured out how to use the digital clock to repair that one ship?" "Yeah, I know. I will miss you as well, Anne. Thank you for everything," Cooper said as she released his shoulder and they stood staring at each other for a moment. "Well," Cooper said, breaking the silence, "I have to go pack and then meet my grandfather for dinner." This brought a smile from Anne. "Yes, I heard. The Firefly. Whoa, big spender." Cooper was sad, but he thought, "I can banter one more time, I guess. Well, my grandfather is the commander, so only the best for his grandson." This made Anne giggle, and they hugged one more time before he left. He thanked her again for the gift, for all the training, and for her friendship. Chapter 18, Firefly Restaurant on Gemini. The last time Cooper was with his grandfather at Firefly was right after they stopped the pirates. He remembered the emotions he was feeling then when he realized that Ryder would be a commander and he wouldn't see him much anymore. The emotions were cropping up again inside him, realizing that Ryder wasn't coming with him to Sperrier. This made Cooper's initial thoughts about going to dinner sad rather than exciting to be eating again at such a fancy restaurant. Then Cooper remembered he just graduated and was promoted to specialist, so there really was something to celebrate. They entered the restaurant, accompanied by Ryder's bodyguards, and headed to a private room in the far corner. As they entered the room, the view took Cooper's breath away. They were at the very top corner of the Gemini space station, and they could watch as the donuts of the station revolved around the main axis. In the distance, he could see the moon, and even further away the blue dot of the earth and the larger yellow dot of the sun. Ryder gave him a moment before talking. "Well, because of my new role, we can no longer sit in the regular part of the restaurant due to security issues. So I hope you enjoy the view." Cooper looked at him. "I love it, grandfather," and they hugged. Ryder led him to some seats right at the window. The two guards gave them space. One moved to wait at the door, and the other just outside it. Cooper looked at the guards. "So, have you had any security problems since taking your new role?" Ryder popped open a bottle of sparkling apple juice while responding. "No, not really. We know the EOA is still out there, but they seem to be laying low at the moment, regrouping." "Yeah, we hit them pretty hard a few months ago," Cooper said, lifting his glass and clinking it with Ryder's. "I just wish we could end them, but as long as we can still trapped in the solar system, they will continue to fight us." "Training was so busy, I don't know much about Operation Seeding. How is it going?" "Well, the progress is slow, but we gained some momentum with the World Space Congress, so hopefully the funding and supplies will come through. It helps that I'm the one asking, since my team saved the chairman's life a few months ago." Cooper smiled at that. Then he changed subject. "And what of the pirate groups?" "Well, the one is in motion. I believe that both groups were ready for a change. They needed a more stable life. They surrendered unconditionally, and the progress toward their little space bases is coming along." Ryder smiled, then said, "And what about you, Cooper? How is training overall? Do you think you are ready for the Mayflower?" Cooper nodded while biting into the bread that was silently served without notice. "I am interested to learn more about suspended animation, and I've worked on so many different kinds of ships while here at Gemini. I think I'm ready." "Yes, you put in many long hours the past few weeks, doing the repairs from the attack. How is your leg feeling?" Subconsciously, Cooper ran his hand over his leg. "Well, it doesn't hurt anymore, and the scar seems to be fading. There are times, though, that I still feel kind of an itchy sensation there, but the doctors say that is common." Ryder laughed out loud. "Yes, the wounds of war. Oh, Cooper, I could tell you stories. I have scars upon scars." Cooper got serious for a moment. "But you don't have to do that anymore, right? No more field work?" Ryder nodded, looking down at the plate of food that just appeared while he wasn't looking. It was steak, lobster, and salmon. He cut into the steak and replied, "Yeah, they don't let me out much. Most of my time is spent on the orb now. I send troops for the missions, but—" Ryder leaned in close. "I am hoping to get on another mission sometime soon." Cooper leaned in as well. "What mission is that?" "Well, we are hoping to find out where Samuels is so we can take out the EOA." Going to a whisper, Cooper asked, "So, was it hard to get him to work for you?" "Yes, it took a little bit of persuasion. He really didn't want to go back to his father and his tactics." "I know," Cooper nodded. "He hates him for the way he was treated as a child. His father was abusive most of the time." "It is our best chance to find the last stronghold of the EOA, though." "So," Cooper leaned back a little, biting into a piece of steak, "have you heard from him at all?" "Well, we know he is with them, but we are unsure where. We are still trying to track all of his escape movements. He has not been able to get a message to us yet, but I told him to wait until he knows for sure what the plan of attack is." They stopped talking for a little bit, enjoying the food and the views. When they were finished, the dessert appeared. It was a chocolate cake, and they both savored the taste for a little bit. Ryder broke the silence and said, "I still can't believe you are already a specialist. Congratulations." "I was so surprised as well. I'm going to miss the motor pool." "And what of Anne, if you don't mind me asking?" Cooper took a moment at the mention of her name and looked out the window. Then he returned his gaze to Ryder. "Well, I'm not sure. Maybe if I were staying on Gemini, there would be a chance. We did kiss once, but that was it, and now I'm off to Mayflower. So that ends that." "Are you sure you still want to do this, Cooper?" Ryder asked, looking at him seriously. "Yes, I am. I just wish Anne wanted to go as well." "She is so close to Bolts, and that last attack probably made her even more set on staying near him," Ryder said. "I know. I was just hoping she would change her mind." "Cooper, as long as we are talking about Mayflower, there is something I must show you. But we need to go back to my room. Are you finished?" Cooper took one more bite of the cake and then pushed it away. "That was an amazing dinner. Thank you, Grandfather." "My pleasure, and congratulations again." They both got up, and the guards reappeared, walking with them out of the restaurant and down the hallway. At first, Cooper thought they were going to the VIP floor in Gemini, but the guards took a turn and headed toward the docking bays. As it turns out, Ryder was heading back tonight to the Orb, and he would sleep en route. As they reached the ship, there were more guards outside, and Cooper recognized Lieutenant Jewell, whom he met after the battle. He saluted her, and she returned the salute. Ryder directed Cooper to his private room. It was impressive for a ship, and he commented on it. Ryder responded, "Yes, this is much better than that ship I used to fly for missions." He directed Cooper to sit at a small table, and then he brought out his handheld. "Cooper, I have some news that may make you reconsider your trip to Sperrier. What I'm about to show you, you can never mention to anyone. This is top secret. I am only showing it to you because you are my grandson, and I trust you completely." "Of course, Grandfather." Cooper was worried now. "A few months ago, I got a video from the Voyager crew, and it was quite disturbing. It showed the captain being killed by something, and then the screen went blank. A few days ago, my computer specialist was able to find a second, hidden video in our regular data transmissions from Voyager. This video is even more concerning." He turned his handheld to Cooper and hit the play button. Cooper watched in horror as a man talked about killing the whole crew in the name of the EOA, and then he proceeded to kill himself. Cooper gasped in surprise until the screen went blank. Ryder took the handheld from him and put it in his pocket. "I am sorry to show you that, but I need to make sure you are still willing to go." "So," Cooper struggled to get his words out, "is the whole crew dead?" "Yes, we were able to identify everyone in the video. The entire crew was murdered." Cooper looked down as the reality hit. "So if my mom lived, we all would have died on Sperrier?" Ryder reached over and grabbed Cooper's hand. "I am sorry, Cooper. That was my first thought as well." "How did this happen?" Cooper looked up with anger in his eyes. "The military always tries to weed out the threats, but sometimes EOA members hide their beliefs so deeply that we are unable to detect them. When you read about this soldier, there is nothing in his previous record that would make you think he would be capable of something like this. So, what does this mean for Mayflower? There is no change right now. It is a go, and the timeline is on schedule, Ryder said. Aren't people wondering why there are no more responses from Voyager? That is an astute observation. Yes, it is a challenge. It has been 4 months since the regular team received any videos. The Voyager is sending regular data, though, on the weather, so most are assuming that the transmitters are broken. However, there were multiple ways they could send video or text to us, so many are starting to realize there's a bigger problem than just communication. As long as no one sees this video or the one where the captain was killed, the mission will continue. And what of the mission? How are we supposed to keep from getting infiltrated by the EOA again? Cooper was getting a little stressed. Ryder shook his head. Well, there is no way to guarantee it, but I have a team of experts looking at each person's background and removing people as needed. In fact, we already removed 22 people with suspicious things in their past. I guess I just have to rely on the military to protect us. Just remember to keep your wits about you. If something looks out of place, notify your captain or sergeant. My team will monitor everything up until the day of the flight. Thank you for trusting me with this information, Grandfather. This is pretty shocking, but I do want to go to Sperrier, so I will stay watchful. That is all I can ask. Then, looking at the digital clock on the wall, Ryder said, Now, sadly, Cooper, our time must come to an end. I must be back at the orb tomorrow. Getting up, Cooper came over, and the two hugged for a long time. Hopefully you can come visit me on the Mayflower before we depart for Sperrier. I promise I will. I love you, Cooper. I love you too, Grandfather. They ended the hug, and Ryder opened the door for him. Cooper left and was escorted out of the ship and back into the hallway. He headed back to his room, thinking about all that he saw. If I went to Sperrier with my mom, I wouldn't be alive right now, he thought in horror. When he made it back to his room, Josiah was there waiting for him. Josiah slapped him on the back and then lay back down while Cooper changed into his nightclothes. So, how was it? Firefly? Josiah asked, leaning up on his elbow. Cooper finished changing and sat on his bunk as well. It was pretty incredible. The waitstaff was so quiet, I never even saw them. The food just seemed to appear. Whoa! And did you get something special since you were there with the commander? Well, we did sit in a private room. Do you mean the Milky Way room? Cooper thought for a minute. I don't remember the name of it, but it was a private room at the very top overlooking the whole space station. That's the room. Man, I have never eaten there, but I snuck up in there one time, and it was the most exquisite place. It was pretty great, Cooper said, now suddenly feeling sad at leaving tomorrow. Josiah caught on and said, So when do you leave? My orders say that I need to report to Shuttle Bay 5 by 0900 hours, Cooper said, thinking about it. Yeah, that sounds about right. That would be the Capricorn space lines. I believe you rode on them when you arrived from Armstrong? That does sound familiar. Now that you mention it, it is hard to believe that was only 4 months ago. So much has changed. Yeah, man, those crazy attacks. I still can't believe that happened. So what about you, Josiah? How long will you be here? Actually, funny you should ask. I just got some new orders myself. Really? Cooper said in surprise. I thought you were here for the long haul. Yes, I'm staying here, but I just got a big promotion. What? Wow! Congratulations! Yes, they want me to head the security division. I just got promoted to staff sergeant, Josiah said. A double promotion? Does that seem strange to you? Well, it seems there are some troop movements. Both of the people above me are being transferred to the moon. It doesn't surprise me, though, with the EOA attacks and then the escalation of interstellar shipbuilding. I guess they need me to run things here. Well, you are one of the heroes of security team, Cooper said, this smiling as both of them hated talking about their parts in the private pirate war. So, when will I have to start calling you staff sergeant? Well, the ceremony will not happen until our next platoon meeting, which isn't for another week. But my orders list me as Staff Sergeant Josiah Smith, so that's official enough for me. Congrats, man. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Actually, I just found out. Literally like an hour ago. I was sitting here wondering what happened, and how I would explain it to my girlfriend. Didn't your commanding officer warn you it was coming? Nope. Cooper shook his head. Nothing. And it stinks that I have to break up with my girlfriend, but this promotion does mean a lot more credits. Why would you have to break up? Cooper said, frowning. Well, with the new rank, I can no longer live on this floor in the barracks. In fact, I will have my own room. Won't you still be able to see her? Josiah looked up for a minute, thinking, well, technically at this rank, I am not permitted to date a specialist, so no. Shoot, I am so sorry, man. I wish I knew earlier. I would have asked Ryder about it. Oh, he is much too busy to worry about me. Besides, it's cool. Now that you and I are leaving, there won't be anyone in this room for a while. It would be pretty lonely anyway. Gemini actually has a nightclub for sergeants, so it should be a great new experience. Maybe I will even find a better girlfriend. Well, I guess that is good. So when do you move? Not for about 2 weeks. Well, at least you get a little time with your current girlfriend before you have to move to the other room. Yeah, Josiah said. Then he looked at his handheld. Hey, man, you better finish packing, showing Cooper the time. Cooper saw the time, and it read 23:45 hours. Shoot, I do need to finish packing, Cooper thought. He got up and opened his locker. He did not own much beyond his work clothes. He started pulling things out and folding them up to fill his duffel bag. He looked over at Josiah, who was laying in the bed now, and asked, should I turn the light off? Nah, man, you're good. It doesn't bother me. Cooper went back to work packing. I am going to miss him, Cooper thought as he started folding his shirts. Chapter 19, EOA Queen Headquarters. A few weeks passed since John Samuels accessed his father's terminal, and he was no closer to figuring out where this hidden EOA location was on Earth. He finished a great training week, and he was being summoned to meet with his father for dinner. After the beating of his soldier, who never returned, he continued to experience nightmares, which made it harder to spend time with his father. In fact, John was avoiding him, making excuses about being too busy with training. But this request came more as an order, so he locked up the facility and headed to his father's room. When he entered, he noticed his father was waiting with open arms. Talbot, of course, was sitting in the back, always watching. John, my only son, please come in. I am so happy to see you. Father, thank you for having me here for dinner. Samuels decided to give the same level of praise to his father, and he entered and they hugged. Come, sit, let's eat for a few minutes, then I have some exciting news. Samuel sat down to a full plate of food. There was chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Plus, the drink seemed sparkly, and when he tasted it, he realized it was cola. This must be a special occasion, he thought. After they finished eating, Paul started talking. John, you are working hard with your soldiers, and I'm so impressed with how they are improving. You are demonstrating real loyalty to the EOA, so it is time that I share with you the future plans for the EOA. Wow, thank you, Father. Samuels did not have to fake his enthusiasm. He meant it. He would finally get the information he needed to send to Ryder and be able to go back to the military as a hero. So, we are calling this plan Operation Destruction. You see, after this plan is over, Sperrier will no longer be an option for any humans, or frankly, any life whatsoever. Father, tell me more, please. So, we know that the Mayflower is just one of many planned trips to Sperrier. The first ship, Voyager, made it to the planet, but we got word back from the agent on the ship and he killed the whole crew and then joined them by killing himself. This was planned by your grandfather, which is now his legacy. Thank God, and thank you, grandfather, Samuel said, while in his mind he was horrified by what he just heard. Yes, agreed. Mayflower is the first of many ships being sent to Sperrier. We can get a few agents planted on the ship, but with so many passengers it would be difficult to be able to kill them all. And then there would just be another interstellar flight in a few months. Leaning in close, he continued, so the plan is to get us on the ship along with a few nuclear bombs. Then, when we get to Sperrier, we detonate them on the planet, rendering it radioactive for the next 1,000 years. Samuels had trouble controlling his face, but he did his best to keep it stern. He had to be careful what to ask. So, Father, what about all the people on the Mayflower? Well, that is easy. We simply don't open their pods. Then we drive the ship into the planet, blowing it up. They won't feel a thing since they were asleep in suspended animation. They just won't ever wake up. Understood, Father. But I thought you said we when you were describing the operation, Samuels asked. Yes, John, we are all going on this mission. We can't leave this plan to chance or to fate of the other agents. We must be there to see it through to the end. So, are you saying we are never coming back? Samuels was shocked by all this. It was one thing to be part of the fight, like he was at Gemini, but it was quite another to travel across the entire galaxy on a mission. No, of course not, John. We will return when the mission is complete. But how, Father? I thought Mayflower was a one-way trip. Well, that is more of the news you don't know about. Along with the nuclear bombs we are bringing along, we also included the parts needed to build a small return ship. Now, it can only carry 3 people, and that will be you, me, and Talbot. The few agents we have with us now, they will not return. They need to stay on the ship to ensure it crashes to the surface. Wow, Father, this seems like a huge risk to all of us. This is light years away. John, Paul put his hand on his son's hand, we must put our faith in God. If it is to be, it will be. John could do nothing but respond, Amen. Bowing his head, he actually said a little prayer. He wasn't a devout believer like his father, but he did believe in God and hoped that in the end it would all work out. Father, may I ask another question? Paul returned to his food and was eating. He seemed to be content with the plan. Of course, John, ask me anything. How is the EOA going to get all of that equipment onto the Mayflower? I mean, nuclear bombs and a return ship? All of this requires lots of planning and equipment. John really wanted to know, not only so he could give it to Ryder, but also for his own interest. Well, John, for all of that, I have Talbot to thank. He pointed and nodded to Talbot as he said this. You see, we have agents who have been working on the Mayflower since before it was even built. These loyal men and women created secret hiding places on the ship. In fact, all of the parts we need are already there, and they are built in behind the walls. You see, when the Mayflower was first being designed, security was much lighter than it is now. We reduced the number of major attacks for a few years so that the focus was elsewhere, rather than security on the Mayflower. If we could, we would have sent it all on the Voyager, but there was much tighter security since it was the first ship to go to Sperrier. Since I was the vice chairman of the World Space Congress at the time, I was also the chair of the Committee on Space Travel. This allowed me to be the final decision maker on the companies contracted to do the building. I controlled everything, and thus I could make sure it all worked out. Of course, we could have just blown up the Mayflower, but that wouldn't solve anything. Mankind would just send another ship. We have to make Sperrier uninhabitable. We have to radiate it so no one will ever want to go back. Amazing, was all that John could say. For a moment he felt totally defeated. His only chance was to somehow get this information to Ryder, but even if he did, would it help? It seemed like the EOA had the plan and all the details ready to go, and it was only a few months before the Mayflower departed. Then it would be too late. There was a knock at the door, and Talbot got up to answer. Paul and John rose to meet the man entering. It was Deacon Redmond. He was the assistant minister at the church, but John knew he was so much more than that. It seemed that he was also in charge of this facility. The deacon came in, sat down, and poured himself some coffee. Redmond, are the plans in order for our departure? Asked Paul. Yes, we are all set. You will leave in 3 weeks. We have all the paperwork, and Talbot will make sure you are disguised well enough to get on the Mayflower. Excellent. I expect you to lead well while I am gone. I know it will be many years, but you have the plans for the future, correct? Yes, I understand, my father, and we will await your return. Our plan is to spend time spreading our groups across to other locations soon after you depart. We don't want to move from this location until after the Mayflower leaves. We are secure here and need to stay that way to ensure no one gets caught and gives away any information. If for some reason I am unable to return, then you must give the leadership to my son. He is ready, Paul said, indicating John next to him. Of course, my father, but I expect you to return. God willing. John finished his food and wanted to leave the room, but it wouldn't be easy to excuse himself. While trying to think of an excuse, his father gave him an out. John, we have a few logistical things to talk about. You can go. Father, one more question. We were going to discuss what was to happen to my squad. Are they coming with us? No, John. Oh, I am sorry. I did not tell you. Your squad will be taking over as the main security force when we leave here. They will be protecting the perimeter until the Deacon is able to start moving EOA to many different locations. You see, after we leave, the EOA will be branching out and preparing for another attack on the orb and various other main targets. It is time to finish off this military once and for all. Okay, understood, Father. They will be ready. John excused himself and got up, trying to get to the door as fast as possible without looking too anxious. He made his way back to his room and closed the door and locked it. While unable to get communications out of the headquarters, he was able to keep a digital log in a small device that Ryder gave him. It looked just like any credits card, but when his fingerprint was placed in it, a little digital keyboard opened up. He had been busy taking notes since he got here, and he immediately started typing all that his father shared. My God, he thought, they were going to use nuclear bombs to destroy Sperrier, but worse, they plan on killing everyone on the Mayflower, including Cooper. John knew he didn't have much time to find a way to get the information to Ryder. After typing the rest of the notes, he hid the card under his bed in a little spot between the mattress and the frame. Even if they flipped the bed, the card was magnetized and would stay on the bed frame. It would take a lot of searching to find it. Now, he needed to do one more thing, but who could he trust? Valencia? He would have to hope for his loyalty. Chapter 20, Capricorn Space Lines. After saying goodbye to Josiah in the morning and getting a quick breakfast, Cooper was on his way to the shuttle bay. He thought about stopping by the motor pool one more time to say goodbye, but decided against it. They already celebrated his leaving yesterday, and he didn't think he could handle seeing Anne one more time. I don't know how, but I hope to see you again someday, Anne, he thought as he continued the trek to the bay. He arrived at the entrances and was greeted by the Capricorn space pilot and co-pilot. They checked his military orders and then helped him to stow his equipment before directing him to his seat. The flight was more crowded than his trip over from the moon. From the look of the people boarding, all of them were military personnel, and most of them were taking their seats, quietly and professionally. As the doors closed and sealed, he noticed that he had the row to himself. He was quite happy with this, as he planned on sleeping after staying up much too late packing the night before. Then the captain came on. Hello, and welcome to Capricorn Space Lines. Thank you for joining us today. This is a special flight headed directly to the USS Mayflower. Our travel time will be approximately 18 hours. Please strap in for the launch and acceleration phase, which will take place in approximately 2 minutes. After the acceleration, you are allowed to get up and move around the cabin. We will let you know again when we must be in your seat for deceleration and docking. Thank you. Cooper was already strapped in, but he checked his belts to make sure they were secure. Then he looked at the digital screen above, counting down the launch. He dreamed that by some wild twist of fate, Anne would change her mind and come bursting through the hatch to join him. But when the countdown reached zero, he realized it was not going to happen. He was alone again with his thoughts. Well, I did just fine when I was a freelancer. It is time for me to try another new experience, Cooper thought, just as he felt the ship push away from Gemini, turn, and prepare for acceleration. The trip to the Mayflower was uneventful, and the time seemed to go by fast. It was hard to believe that Cooper became so accustomed to space travel in just 9 months he traveled since he left the Earth. Because he spent so much time in shuttles and in and out of the graveyard, finding repair parts, going in and out of ships were routine for him. Cooper tried his best to sleep most of the time. He was exhausted from working so many hours on the repairs from the pirate attacks and passing the tests. Since the Mayflower was docked out in space, there wouldn't be gravity to worry about when coming in, so they could pretty much decelerate right near the end and then dock. The Mayflower was located at the fourth Lagrange point, L4. This is located at the vertex of an equilateral triangle between the Earth and the Sun, and the same distance between each other at 384,311 kilometers. It was a dead point, where gravitation was minimal and a ship could be built at almost zero gravity. It would make the eventual launch much easier. With the extra travel time, Cooper read through his files about the Mayflower. Ryder gave him some extra information to review that was not normally provided to a soldier of his rank. He learned that it took more than 3 years to build Mayflower. Originally designed to carry rich people away from space, over time the population of the future ship became people who were willing to take on a new adventure. The life at Sperrier wasn't going to be an easy one. It would require everyone working together to survive while building a society to last forever. The records showed that there was a recent purge of people who were considered at risk of being EOA members. This made Cooper nervous, but he was happy they were removing any potential dangers. He had previously seen pictures of the Mayflower through ads on the terminal back in New Denver, but these pictures were different. They showed the Mayflower in 3D, and Cooper could use his fingers to spin the ship and zoom in. At first glance, the ship looked like a bullet for an M16. It was super shiny on the outside and painted white. Along one side was a large picture of the sailing ship Mayflower. In 1620, the first Mayflower took the Pilgrims to what was now the United States. Cooper thought it was amazing that they were bringing up names from more than 500 years ago, but that seemed to be one of the things the military always preferred. Even the first interstellar ship, Voyager, dated back to the 2 satellites launched in 1977 that were the first man-made objects to leave the solar system. The bullet design of the Mayflower provided an outer hull, but inside was a second hull that spun slowly, providing a level of gravity that was higher than the Moon, but not quite as high as the Earth. Since Sperrier's gravity was lower than Earth's, the goal was to find a happy medium between that and no gravity. The travelers would be asleep for most of the time, but with some gravity, it was easier to maintain systems, especially the suspended animation machines, which used fluids to keep the humans alive. While Cooper would be asleep during the majority of the trip, he would be awakened periodically to be on duty in case something went wrong. With his job title, this could mean fixing different areas of the ship so they could continue to run efficiently. The worst case scenario would be if the ship's engine failed somewhere after the midway point. If that happened, they would probably all perish because there was no other ship that could reach them to help. However, the shipbuilders were talented mechanics, as evidenced by Voyager, and now they had more than 10 years of improvements to that design. While this would be only the second interstellar ship carrying humans, they sent ahead a few supply ships that would arrive and orbit until the Mayflower arrived. In this way, did not need to have to carry everything in this one ship. However, this also meant there were no graveyard to get parts. This is one of the key reasons why Cooper was chosen, because he showed flexibility and innovativeness when it came to solving problems given limited supplies. On the voyage, he might have to repurpose parts at times to ensure they made it safely, and for sure, this is exactly what they would be doing when they arrived at Sperrier and took the spaceship to the ground and started building a civilization. At this, Cooper paused for a minute and daydreamed. This is for real. I am leaving the solar system behind and going to a whole new world. Yes, I want this, but sometimes I wish Anne and Grandfather were with me as well, Cooper thought, sniffling to hold back his tears. He realized he was tired again, so he laid back the seat, closed the files and his handheld, and quickly fell asleep.